Hello and welcome back. On the last episode, we just completed the Kang Byakuya's mission, I guess, or answer to the letter, and now that will help us solve Chang Young Min's letter, which will hopefully change Carlos's D to a S, and therefore we can move on. Case kidnapping. Anyway, yeah, so let's retry. Oh, yeah, so let's, usually when Carlos walks over here, the issue solves itself, which obviously means the fire truck needs to be over here as returned, because I feel like this is simply all we need to solve the difference, because if the black ends always flash like that, I'm not aware, but yeah, it's changing something. Who the hell would it be calling at this godforsaken moment? I turned around and answered the phone quietly. It was Lieutenant Kang. The lieutenant briefly asked me about the situation and told me to hand the phone over to the husband. It was the Bungang? What? Is it true? Oh my, that's wonderful. Thank you. Wow. He hung up the phone, dropped the knife, and hugged his wife, sobbing uncontrollably. Sue, it's all okay now. We can have our lives back. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. It was all my fault. What just happened? I took my phone back from the man, confused. A strong gust of wind blew past us, and the man lost his balance. I quickly reacted and took a big step forward and grabbed him, trying to pull him back. But I was pulled over instead. We fell over the ledge together, the world spinning. It was 10 floors off the ground. No one would survive if we hit the ground. I swung my right arm as hard as I could towards the roof ledge. Something flew out of my coat. It was a white ribbon I wrapped around my forearm, with a small spearhead tied to its end. The spearhead was wrapped around a metal bar on the ledge a few times and tightened the ribbon. So this man wants to be a ninja, apparently. It's my secret weapon. I called it my tail. Okay, Naruto. For a moment, I let out a sigh of relief, thinking that we were safe. But the bar couldn't hold our weight and began to bend. I tightened my left fist and grabbed the man's shirt harder. I burned the last drop of energy inside of me with all the adrenaline I had, and forced every single muscle cell to release all of their power. Justice was not something I only talked about. I threw him up towards the roof. We were quickly moving away from each other in opposite directions. The metal bar finally gave out, and it was torn away from the concrete in the ledge. I began falling with it. I could hear the wind gushing in my ears. This is my justice. That's rank S. We didn't even. What about the fire truck? What happens with the fire truck? New post, but we still have line when. Okay. We'll do the new post after that then. Strange teacher. The last class of the day was art. I pushed open the door and to the classroom. I was shocked by what I saw. What was happening? The room was that unusually had only a dozen people in it and was now almost full. It was like a scene from a beach in the middle of summer. There wasn't enough eshels for everyone. Just when I was wondering whether I should leave and go study, I saw Jing waving me over from the front row. Why are there so many people here today? I sat down at the seat Jing had been saving for me. You really don't know anything, do you? Miss Liu is on maternity leave, so we have a new substitute teacher. Somebody saw him earlier in the office and posted his picture on the school BBS. He looked so handsome. I looked around, and only then did I realise that almost all of the newcomers were girls. Why was Rocky here? What was a boy doing here? Are boys not allowed to be interested? I took my phone out and tried to log into the BBS. I found myself unknowingly imagining what the new handsome teacher would look like while waiting for the page to load. Well-made pink shirt, rolled up sleeves, top button unbuttoned, pale and flawless skin, impeccable face from the side. Honestly, that doesn't sound all that attractive to me. That just sounds like someone who generally is like that has a secret, especially when it comes to like I guess Eastern media. I guess it's usually those people who are suspicious. Wi-Fi signal wasn't strong enough, and I couldn't look for a long time. Then the front door of the room was slowly pushed open. With everyone staring at him, the new teacher slowly walked across the to the podium and softly wrote his name on the blackboard. Wen Zoren, the guy who we had already met, or Lai Wen already met, in an unfortunate way. I'll be teaching the art class for the seniors, starting today. I looked him up and down, and I noticed that this Mr. Wen was wearing flip-flops to the class. His ensemble also included a pair of casual pants with the legs rolled up and grey t-shirt and a wrinkled jacket. Not just that, his chin suggested that he hadn't shaved for days. I turned to my side and whispered to Jing, "How is this old man handsome?" Jing ignored me. I looked up and realised that the teacher was staring at me. Oh no, he must have overheard me. Suddenly Rocky raised his hand and asked loudly, Mr. Wen, how old are you? And do you have a girlfriend?" The entire class erupted into a loud murmur. Everyone was staring at the teacher even more intensely. "Thank you, Rocky, for getting me out of trouble." Mr. Wen slowly took off his jacket and laid it onto the back of the chair next to him. 35. Girls immediately began whispering to each other. His response certainly had intrigued everyone even more. Rocky, however, didn't seem to be satisfied with his answer. Mr. Wen ignored the commotion in the room and took a banana-shaped statue out of the accessory cabinet. People with eshels began to prepare their paper. The ones without took out their sketch pads. The class was going to be over soon. Near the end of class, Mr. Wen said he would pick an assistant from the class. Anybody who was interested could stand up and nominate him or herself. However, he would need to check his or her sketch. Jing stood up. How brave. Mr. Wen walked over and picked up the sketch. He shook his head and tore it into two halves. Rude. Rocky stood up from his seat. I stood up from my seat too. And then the bell rang. Jing was sobbing, and I was completely in shock too. Not only did Mr. Wen tear up her sketch, he even said to her, "Are you serious? Did you seriously just draw something like that? I will not tolerate this kind of thing in my class." We were just some regular high school students. We were not in an art school. Are you serious? Rocky jumped in front of the teacher. I tried to stop him, but it was too late. Rocky punched Mr. Wen in the face. "Okay then, Rocky." Mr. Wen, however, didn't react, despite having just being hit by a student. He simply gave Rocky a glance and walked out of the room without saying a word. That's probably the best thing he could have done. Rocky, he'd always been so self-righteous. The only thing more important in his life would be his war games. I bet if the bell had rang and the class had been over, he wouldn't have bothered. Okay, that's a hint. And he would have gone off to play basketball. After that, Mr. Wen never came back to class. Maybe someone filed a complaint about him, or maybe... I had always had the feeling that he didn't look like he wanted to be a teacher. The next art teacher was dressed impeccably well. He was also incredibly dull. Lie when. Okay, seems pretty simple. I don't like how Lie when's like complaints generally are about like trivial things. There's only like 2 times like there's been kidnappings, hostage situations, but for Lie wen, for specifically Jimmy and Lie wen, I like a girl and oh, my life isn't perfect. I don't like, I'm not good at tennis. Well, she is good at tennis, but like the only 2 I consider of Lie wens that are actually like serious things are going home in the dark because that could be dangerous, and it was the someone I accidentally murdered someone because I assumed they were stalking me, sort of thing. But yeah, yeah. So Belle goes first. Jing was sobbing and I was completely in shock too. Not only did Mr. Wen tear up her sketch, he even said to her, "Are you serious? Did you seriously just draw something like this? Something like that? I will not tolerate this kind of thing in my class. We were just regular high school students. We were not in an art school. Are you serious? Boring." Rocky picked up his basketball from another seat and casually walked out of the classroom and disappeared into the after-class crowd that was filling the hallway. Other people were leaving as well, while talking with each other about what just happened. Nobody ever mentioned picking assistants ever again either. I walked with Jing on the track field and told her a dozen jokes until she finally felt a little better. That old man, not only did he dress terribly, his temper was even worse. How could the school hire such a person to be a teacher? I mean, pretty generally, right? Oop. Not responding? Oh well. Rank A. Okay then, cool, what have you got last then? Mr. Wen tore up my sketch, and he even said to me, "I will not tolerate this kind of thing in my class." Jing was frightened and she sat back down. I was in complete shock and my nose started to feel stuffy. Was that necessary? Ha ha ha, you idiot. Rocky loudly jeered. That guy. I made a face at him. Okay, rank B. So we just put everything in reverse then. Mr. Wen tore up Rocky's sketch and said, Why don't you bring this to the class next time so everybody can practice with it?" Rocky's face suddenly turned to the brightest red I've ever seen. A minute ago he had been acting like the king of the world. What did he draw exactly? He punched Mr. Wen right in the face. Mr. Wen, however, didn't react despite being hit by a student. He simply gave Rocky a glance, put down the sketch and walked out of the classroom without saying a word. Since then, Mr. Wen never came back to class. Maybe someone filed a complaint about him, or maybe... I don't have the feeling that he didn't look like he wanted to be a teacher. The next art ed teacher dressed in her impeccably well, but was incredibly dull. So that's bad. Let's put us before the bell. Bad. The bell after Rocky. Bell still last, maybe. Bad. Rocky last. Bad. Okay. Bell first, then us, then Rocky last. Right, that's we've done this before. Wait, have we done this before? A. B. B. Bad. 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 I don't know which way I had these two. Oop. Oh, okay. There you go. Jing was sobbing and was completely in shock too. Not only did he say that, not only did Mr. Wynn tear up his sketch, he even said to her, "Are you serious? Did you seriously just draw something like that? I will not tolerate this kind of thing in my class." Seeing Jing crying like that, I couldn't control my anger. "Mr. Wen, you're way out of line. You need to apologize to Jing." Mr. Wen gave me a glance and picked up my sketch. Boring. Rocky picked up his basketball from a receipt and casually walked out of the classroom and disappeared into the after-class crowd that was filling the hallway. Other people were leaving as well. There were fewer and fewer people left in the room. I collected my stuff into my backpack, getting ready to leave. "You, stay and clean up the room." "What?" I stopped what I was doing and looked at Mr. Wen in disbelief. He handed me my sketch back to me. "After all, you're my assistant for this course now." He turned away and walked back to the front of the classroom. Then I realized that everyone who was still in the room was staring at me. Everyone looked like they were gawking at a circus monkey on the street. I mean, good shows. What the hell? I had no intention of being a freaking assistant to this guy. Jing put her arm around my shoulder. "Congratulations, let me buy you a dinner sometime, you poor kid." I burst out laughing. Well, whatever. It sounds like she got over that pretty well. That's the S? Okay. I suppose it makes sense. A relay race. Come. In the alley. In tennis. Ah, cool. Let's stick with Lai Wen and then we'll... Why has Jimmy got the first branching path, I guess. I'm Lai Wen, a senior at Yanglang High School. Today, the new art teacher assigned me as his assistant for the class, so I had to stay after class to clean up the art classroom. I tried to sneak a few peeks at the strange teacher while I was reluctantly mopping the floor. He was looking over the sketches that had been left in the room one by one, and then throwing them in the trash. It was just the two of us in the room, neither of us talking. "Hey W, how was your first day?" It was my homeroom teacher, Miss Yang, who burst into the room and broke the silence. She said hello to me, and held on to Mr. Wen's arm like a little girl. According to what I heard from Jing, Mr. Wen and Miss Yang went way back. It was also Miss Yang who recommended Mr. Wen to the newly vacant teaching position. The beautiful Miss Yang, who is said to be notoriously hard to get, many male teachers in the school had allegedly been turned down by her. I mean, relationships in the same business generally don't really work well, I think, because if things go badly, then the business goes badly as well. Was she involved with Mr. Wen? I grabbed the trash can and deliberately left the room. When I got back, there was no one there anymore. Someone appeared to have already replaced the barrel of water dispenser too. It seems like I could finally go home. Yay. It was starting to get dark when I finally finished cleaning the classroom. I walked out of the school gate and I noticed Mr. W was walking not too far in front of me, going in the same direction. That was strange. I thought he had left a while ago. I didn't want to talk to him, so I just stayed at a distance quietly watching his back. Such a bad-tempered and terribly dressed man. How exactly did he become a teacher again? Before I knew it, Mr. Wen had walked into the dark alley and that led to my place. However, as soon as I stepped into the alley myself, I suddenly felt that something was wrong, and I immediately backed out. You don't like that alleyway. Mr. Wen had been stopped by two men, one in front of him, one behind him. The one facing my direction was wearing a tank top. He flashed a pocket knife in Mr. Wen's face. I had hid behind the corner and tried to peek around it. Mr. Wen took out his wallet and handed it over without any resistance. That was smart, I thought. Better safe than sorry. Yeah, I guess. But nothing really stops him from getting you anyway. The tank top guy fiddled with the wallet for a while and slammed it to the ground. 20. Do you think I'm some beggar? He punched Mr. Wen in the face. Mr. Wen stumbled back and bumped into the guy behind him, still not resisting. The tank top guy placed a knife on Mr. Wen's face. Be smart, give me all your money. Judging from the look on his face, maybe that 20 yuan, it was really all Mr. Wen had. That's not good. We were too far away from the main street and there was no one else around who would help. I suddenly had an idea. I took the racket out of my bag and grabbed a tennis ball. It was time to test the results of my nightly practices. Ball toss. Backswing. Please hit the target, please. The ball was flying at the speed of 180 kilometers an hour. I feel like knowing this game and what you're asking help for, you're not going to hit your target, are you? A gust of wind suddenly swept by. The ball was blown off its path by the wind, and I missed the target. Thought so, and instead it hit the back of Mr. Wen's head. Mr. Wen fell down on the ground with a thud like a brick. Two men noticed me, and they seemed to be just as shocked as me. They must have thought I wanted to kill the man lying on the ground for some reason. The tank top guy took one step towards me. I began to picture how they would force me into a corner, pull out a chainsaw from behind them, and cut me into pieces. Oh no, I couldn't stay there any longer. I'm sorry, Mr. Wen. I screamed silently in my head and ran away with my hands covering my face, leaving Mr. Wen there himself. The next day, Mr. Wen didn't come to class. The school put out an announcement saying that he'd been badly injured during a robbery, and that he was in a coma at the hospital. The announcement also reminded the students to be careful on the way back home. It was all my fault. I should have not left him alone. There must be a better way. I went. See, this is another thing that's considered serious. Okay, Jimmy. My name is Jimmy. I'm a transfer student. I arrived at Beijing not too long ago, and now I'm a senior at Yingnang High School. The reason I chose this school was because I had a serious crush on a girl here. Just a few days ago, I was fortunate enough to be a partner in a doubles tennis match on my first day at school. At first, I was so thankful that I thought the goddess had finally smiled upon me. Yet, I was so totally embarrassed because I'd never even played tennis before. After that happened, I made up my mind. I was determined to improve my tennis skills just in case I had another chance like this. I'd adjust the serve speed of the ball machine, walk back to the baseline and raise my racket to get ready. In order to get better, I thought I bought a season membership at a club. I even finished watching all 178 episodes of the Kid Tennis anime. I had a complete faith in myself. I believe I could make it work this time. The next time I got to play with her, I would show off my kick serve, my pickup volleys, my drive D, and even my zero style slices to her. And she looked at me with admiration. The ball machine shot with a pong. The ball was flying at 140 kilometers an hour. What a sneaky machine. How dare it serve the ball when I wasn't paying attention. Oh gosh, my wrist really hurts. The doctor said that I hurt my tendon. I needed to rest my right hand for at least a month. He said that I should not even use a mouse, not to mention playing tennis. No, doctor, I want to play. My dear goddess of fortune, if you can hear me, please heal my wrist. If it's necessary, I'll even swear video games for a month as a sacrifice to you. Please, I do like Jimmy's emoticons though. Okay. Time to start. In these two letters, there are some special restrictions. Special restrictions? Yes, remember when I told you that the white pieces could be moved anywhere, except past the first and last black pieces in the letter, of course? Yes, I do remember. When special restrictions are in place, that will no longer be the case. For instance, in these two letters, the two pieces, 140 kilometers an hour and 180 kilometers an hour, are in conflict with each other, so they can't be in the same one, right? That means they cannot be moved to the same side. If you try to do that, they will automatically switch places with each other. Both pieces are labelled with a double-headed arrow, which stands for conflict. In addition to conflict, there's another special restrictions such as sequence. We'll do that when we see it. I'm assuming that means things have to go in certain orders, since obviously it's called a sequence. For now, we just need to remember that all of the pieces with the special restrictions will be labelled with a red sign, like that, like this one on the right side. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for it. Well, I mean, should be fine. All we need to do is just move this over, because then you hit your target, and you don't get hit in the arm, right? It's kind of common sense, right? I should have a little. Before I realised it, the ball was already right in front of me. I was so stalled that I had to awkwardly block the ball with the racket. And I'd actually accidentally hit it in the sweet spot, and it actually felt really great. Wait, had I just hit it? Yes, I had. I had just hit an underspin shot. A technique in tennis where the ball is hit slicing downward at the contact point, forcing it to have a backspin rotation. It usually falls slower than a flat shot or a topspin shot. The advantage to this is that the ball will bounce backwards in a backwards direction once it hits the court, which could cause the opponent to whiff if not properly timed. However, a backspin is usually too slow, so its trajectory goes. If its trajectory goes too high, it could also be easily go out of or get volleyed. An ideal backspin should have a very low clearance of the net and stay low and flat. Experienced players will often sneak a backspin after a series of top spins or flat tops to disrupt the opponent's rhythms. Oh wow, I'd learned how to hit a underspin shot. Banzai, banzai. I jumped down and said, I jumped up and down with excitement. People nearby were shooting me admiring, strange looks. What does banzai mean? Was he hurt? No, banzai is a Japanese phrase. It means hooray. Although, based on my observation, lots of people outside of Japan use this word as well. They're from many different countries, and most of them are men. Oh, and they share another common characteristic. What is that? We're all single. Is this a shot at weebs? Single? What's wrong with being single? Everything. Being single hurts. Ha! So in the end, banzai still means hurt, right? See, banzai means being single, and being single means it hurts. This is very straightforward. I think I'm single too, banzai. Cool. The ball hit the forehead of the guy in the tank top, exactly as I planned. I fell down on the ground. He fell down on the ground with a thud like a brick. Before the second man realised what had happened, I sprinted towards his back as fast as I could. I smashed his head with my racket with all my strength. Then I grabbed Mr. Wren's hand and ran towards the end of the alley. 10 minutes later, I was panting heavily and I realised that I'd already run all the way back to my apartment building. Oh, and I was still holding Mr. Wren's hand. Mr. Wen, excuse me, this is where I live. I quickly let go of his hand. Well, I might as well do a home visit then, shall we? Home visit? For a senior? By an art teacher? Mr. Wen, actually. There's no one else home. I walked in front of him and explained. Do your parents always work late? Mr. Wen looked at me while climbing up the stairs. The sunlight coming through the windows in the hallway was making him squint. No, I live alone. I stopped in front of room 413, but Mr. Wen didn't follow me. He stopped in front of the room 414. He pointed at the door next to him with his thumb and smiled. He can smile? I suddenly remember. On the first day after I moved in, the manager, Uncle Son, had told me that a very famous artist was from abroad had been living in the apartment next door. So that was him. We'd actually met each other before. Oh well, pretty simple. So I guess the next choice is to go for Carlos and Jimmy's alternate route, because it's a different timeline, apparently. I think, maybe, yeah. Because if it was just like earlier, it would be online. So, but anyway, hopefully you had fun. Yeah. So But yeah, hopefully I can catch you on the next one. With that, goodbye.